I am MKuczenski. This is my code review for CS499. The artifact for the project I chose to work on was originally created during the CS340 client-server development class. This artifact will be used for all three computer science categories. I will be completing an explanation of the functionality of the project, followed by highlighting areas that need to be improved upon, and then ending with my enhancement plan for each of the three computer science categories to reduce repeating myself. The code in this file was designed to initialize a connection to a MongoDB database that holds information on the different animals in the shelter. Additionally, it uses create, read, update, and delete operations to modify the database. The initialization takes in a username, password, host, port, database, and collection variables. In the comments, it states how the initialization comes from MongoDB in the database that the data comes from is from the CS340 class, specifically from the AAC database, the animals collection, and the AAC user. The initialization to MongoDB is then done using the information given previously, as well as accessing the correct database and collection, which is seen in these 3 lines of code. Additionally, the code has functions to create, read, update, and delete data from the database. First, we will look at the create function. The create operation is intended to add a new entry into the database. This is done by looking at the information that was entered into the system. It checks to make sure the entry is not empty with if data is not done, and if it is not, then it inserts the data into the database. The create function also checks to see if the entry was successfully inserted by using a true-false Boolean operation. Finally, it raises an exception to the user to let them know if the field is empty. Next, the read operation is intended to simply show the user a database entry that they were searching for. This is done by taking in a query and searching in the database for a match using the find function. If there is a match found in the database, the matching entry will be returned to the user. Following that, the update function is designed to update data that is already in the database. The function takes in a query of what the user is looking for, as well as what the update is. First, the function checks to see if the query field is not empty by if query is not none. If it is not empty, it updates all of the matching database entries with whichever was entered in the updated field. This is done with this line of code. Finally, it prints out a statement that notifies the user how many documents were modified. Lastly, the delete function is intended to remove previous entries from the database. This is done by the user entering a query. First, it checks to make sure that the query is not empty, and then it deletes every entry that matches the query in the database. It ends the function by printing out a statement that notifies the user how many documents were deleted. Moving to the next document where the dashboard was created in the previous course. It begins with many imports to the Jupyter Dash, Python modules, as well as imports for plotting functions. Next, it imports the animal shelter class so the previous CRUD functions can be implemented and connections can be made to the MongoDB. That is seen in this line of code, as well as inputting all of the variables seen here. The matching variables are entered to allow a connection to the database. This next line allows for all the database entries to be read, followed by the dropping of the ID column as it is not included in the new database. Next, the logo is saved into the project from an image file saved on the computer, which is done with these two lines. The next block of code begins to set up the dashboard webpage. The logo, company name, and my name are all added to the dashboard, which is seen right here. Next, the radio items feature is used to allow buttons with different types of rescue animals to be selected. Here, we can see the different labels for the buttons, and in this case, they also match up what the value is, allowing for an easy matchup. Additionally, there is a reset button included to allow the dashboard to go back to an unfiltered list. Moving on to the next block of code, this area focuses on setting up the dashboard to be user-friendly. It allows for rows, not columns, to be selectable, as well as taking away the ability for the user to delete rows. Following that, the dashboard is then configured to have a chart and map placed next to each other underneath the previous list that was set up with these variables. This shows the one for the graph, and this shows the one for the map. Next, we move on to the function that defines which rescue animals should be shown when a button is clicked on the dashboard. If, else if statements are used to filter each type of rescue. All three of the types of rescue situations include what type of animal, what breed, sex, and age in weeks the animals in the database should match to be shown for the filter button that is clicked. There's also a minimum and maximum age for the weeks. This is seen for all three different types of rescues. Again, the ID column is dropped and the database is searched for matching records, and the matches are returned to the user. The next function creates a pie chart that shows the most used breeds for the rescues, which is seen right here. Following that, there is a function for highlighting the back of a selected row when it is clicked on by the user, seen right here. Finally, the code ends with the creation of a map that shows the selected animal's location using grid locations, as well as showing the breed and name of the animal, which is seen down here. The map is currently set to be centered in Austin, Texas, with this location. Now that I have gone through the functionality of the code, I will begin to focus on the areas that need improvement as they do not follow coding best practices. Moving back to the first file, the first update that should be made is a cleanup of the initial comments. I did not remove any of the template comments that the professor made during the course. For example, this should be removed. Making sure that comments are related directly to the code and do not reflect my previous coursework is important. Another issue to look at is the spelling. For example, there's a spelling error in the comments that describe the expectation, as there is an E missing in parameter. Small mistakes like this should still be fixed. The read, update, and delete function should all have either an exception or print line that notifies the user if there is nothing matching their query. This is only seen in the create function, but it should be passed on to the others as well. Additionally, the update and delete function either change or remove all of the queries that match instead of just one. This is seen with update many or delete many. A better way would be to have the options for either updating or removing one or all of the matching queries. Other than that, the code does completely and correctly implement the design as the code works as intended. The style and naming conventions match throughout the file. There are comments to describe the intended purpose or functionality of the code. There is no redundant or unused variables present. On the next document where the dashboard is configured, there are a few areas for improvement as well. Firstly, the Fix Me comments should be removed as the fix was already implemented. This can be seen right here and right here. These fixes were already done during the CS499 class, and I should have removed them once I made the changes. Also, the unused line of code for adding a unique identifier should be removed as I did not use it in this area of my code, and it was just a template of how it should be written. This is seen right here, along with more Fix Me's. The following functions could have additional comments to better relay what the code is meant to do. All of these functions could benefit from a few more comments that would better tell other people what it is I plan for my code to do. Besides fixing the comments, this file was created well, as I put a lot of time and effort into making sure the dashboard was done correctly and efficiently. The code correctly compiles and showcases a list, filter buttons, a pie chart, and a map. It is well structured as it is consistently formatted and uses well thought out naming conventions. There are callbacks used for reusable components. The if-else statements consider all of the possibilities and are not endless loops. Next, I will discuss my plan for enhancement for each of the 3 computer science categories. First, we have the software design and engineering category. For this enhancement, I plan to convert the animal shelter Python file to a Java file. I will focus on going line by line to make sure that it is a successful conversion and the final product will run the same as the Python file would. The specific skills that will be demonstrated are knowledge in Python and Java coding languages and ensuring high-quality coding practices. By converting the artifact from one language to another showcases skills in multiple languages, allowing for diverse audiences to be able to work on the project depending on which coding language is needed. There is more collaboration available with the ability to change between languages. Additionally, by successfully translating the language, it ensures that high-quality coding practices are being used. The code will need to have the same outcome as the original artifact, allowing for CRUD operations to be done. This shows well-founded and innovative skills to deliver the final product. The course outcomes that the enhancement will align with are employ strategies for building collaborative environments that enable diverse audiences to support organizational decision-making in the field of computer science, and demonstrate an ability to use well-founded and innovative techniques, skills, and tools in computing practices for the purpose of implementing computer solutions that deliver value and accomplish industry-specific goals. Next, moving on to the algorithm and data structure category. My plan is to implement validation checks for the data types of new entries being added to the database. This will be done using schema validation as the entries are added using MongoDB. I will create a collection for the animals and use the validator option to specify the rules for what data types can be entered. From the other file, we can see that the data types that need to be validated are animal type, breed, sex upon outcome, and age upon outcome in weeks. Animal type, breed, and sex need to make sure that only strings are allowed with a max length of 20, as additional characters over 20 would not be necessary. Additionally, age needs to only allow entries that are numbers with a minimum of 1, as to not allow negative or 0 numbers. The specific skills that will be demonstrated include data validation and implementing steps to solve a problem. Data validation helps the security of the database as it ensures that no values that are not allowed will be added, which could potentially lead to a security breach, hacking of the system, or just create a low-quality database. Additionally, the enhancement will showcase implementation of steps to solve a problem by using algorithmic principles and computer science practices by adding extra code and verification steps preventing a problem before it occurs. The course outcomes that the enhancements align with are design and evaluate computing solutions that solve a given problem using algorithmic principles and computer science practices and standards appropriate to its solution while managing the trade-offs involved in design choices. Develop a security mindset that anticipates adversarial exploits in software architecture and designs to expose potential vulnerabilities, mitigate design flaws, and ensure privacy and enhance security of data and resources. Finally, for the database computer science category, my plan is to implement SQL queries as an update to the CRUD functions. This will allow more specific searching, the ability to update or delete single or many entries, and updating the current CRUD operations to reflect a SQL database. This will be done by adding more functions specifically for an update one, update many, delete one, or delete many options. It will also notify the user if there are no matching entries, as that was not implemented beforehand. The specific skill that will be demonstrated is implementation of SQL queries to create a more high-quality database using well-founded tools. The advanced SQL queries will allow for the database to be used more efficiently and enable quicker changes. Having a database that is easy to query holds high value as errors and time wasted are reduced. The course outcome that the enhancement aligns with is demonstrate an ability to use well-founded and innovative techniques, skills, and tools in computing practices for the purpose of implementing computer solutions that deliver value and accomplish industry-specific goals. By completing all 3 enhancements, the project will showcase the skills I have learned throughout the computer science program here at SNHU. This completes my code review. Thank you for listening.